Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. I have with me co-host Todd Chapman and special guest Marina Byezhanova. Did I nail that or did I nail that?
So perfect.
Okay.
Boom.
You know what? Let me try it one more time. Marina Byezhanova is on a mission to scale the reach of people's voices. Co-founder of a personal branding agency called Brand of a Leader, Marina has been quoted and referenced in such publications as Inc.com, Forbes.com, Fast Company, Success Magazine, The Wall Street Journal, and The Financial Post, and has spoken to audiences of entrepreneurs and business executives in North America, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Brand of a Leader's purpose is to help entrepreneurs realize and express their greatness. Proud member of Entrepreneurs Organization and is presently part of the Global Learning Ambassadors Committee. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be having this conversation. And as I said, I'm just excited to catch up with you. It's been a while.
It has been a while. And not only do I believe in what you do, I'm also a client. So it's kind of like the hair club for men. Not only do I make the commercial, I also use the product. And I've had a great experience in working with you and your team. I think we worked together, I don't know, it must have been 6-8 months or something like that. It was quite a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while, but it was awesome. I mean, I was so inspired by your journey, your willingness to be authentic and raw and share your story. But go ahead, you do all the talking about the great experience.
I do. I will do all the talking. I think the one thing that I'll remember from our conversation was at one point I said, I think you told me, you said, I watch some of the stuff that you post on LinkedIn, and sometimes it makes me shriek, but it works for you, so keep doing it if that's how it goes. I don't know if it's always good or bad, but I guess that comes down to just, I don't know, trying to be the real version of yourself, trying to be authentic and trying to be real, with who you are. And I think what you guys really helped me deliver and find was what were the pillars, that really defined who I was and who I am, from a speaking perspective, from a social media perspective. And that was really, good for me, whether it was, faith and family and, business and some of these things that really became, cornerstones and pillars of how I try to represent myself online. And I think that having that narrowed down is really an important thing for anybody who's trying to do that in the space, just because you can kind of wake up and say, well, is a personal brand just social media? Or is it many different things? And I love how your organization walks you through each one of those different avenues and really helps you to find your voice. What for you brings real happiness and success when you're working with a client? What are you looking for?
So many things. So one of the things is holding up a mirror to somebody and showing how great they are, right? So our purpose is to help people, realize their greatness and express it. And it's very, very authentic to us. There's no bigger joy than, because the thing is, we work with highly successful people, right? We work with Gen X entrepreneurs, CEOs, people like yourself, people who are confident and know that they're great at what they do. but not always confident when it comes to putting themselves out there. That often feels uncomfortable, intimidating. If you're used to being behind your business, building it, and not in the public eye, it can just feel unnerving. So with the work that we do, and you're just such a great example, Dave, because a lot of people think, oh, they're going to brand me. They're going to put me in a box, and it's going to be all cookie cutter, and they're going to create some polished version of me that's not me. That's absolutely not true. As you've seen, our goal is to structure things, organize, show, okay, this is your greatness. This is what you should lead with. But how you express yourself needs to be absolutely authentic to you. And you've preserved that style. And as I said, it works for you. So number one is that moment when we put everything together, the brand architecture, we read the bio to the client, we say, this is what makes you great. And we get that moment. We sometimes even get clients that will, choke up a bit and say, that is me. Like, that's true. And we go, yes, it is. That's number one. And then number two is when our clients express their greatness, find their voice. Whenever I see your posts on LinkedIn, that brings me joy. When I see a client on a stage delivering a talk, that gives me joy. When I see somebody giving an interview on a podcast, that brings me joy, because I know that we were the catalyst to push them to that point of allowing others to be inspired by them. As you know, our teams are already inspired by us, our immediate circle of influence, but scaling that reach. So that is our very authentic purpose.
Yeah, that's like, I hear a lot of breaking down walls and barriers too within that. Like there's a lot of personal growth that's actually getting outside of your comfort zone, stretching, breaking down walls, barriers. That's more than,
some of the things, when people come to us originally and they're looking to learn more about the process and personal branding, some of the things we hear most frequently, and that's to us an indication that is our client, that is the ideal person, is when we hear, I really don't like the spotlight. I'd really rather be behind, the scenes building my business. I don't want the spotlight on me. I like putting other people on the pedestal and shining the spotlight on them. I'm not comfortable with this whole thing. A lot of our clients say I'm an introvert. And we go, yes, because that's where we help. We have a lot of people who come to us, personal branding agencies, a lot of people that will come to us and say, make me famous, help me monetize my name, make me the next, Jordan Peterson, whoever else is in the public eye. That's not our person. We help people who are busy doing other things, not busy becoming famous. And this is what we do, is giving them stages and vehicles that fuel their growth, but also they serve the business. So yes, it's a lot of breaking down of barriers, because our clients are not, they don't get off on the spotlight for the spotlight's sake.
Why do you think it's important for a business owner, entrepreneur to put themselves in the spotlight? Why would that be important?
There's a number of reasons. First of all, the marketing landscape has changed. It's becoming harder and harder for us to bring visibility to our businesses. Social media has changed. I think with the rise of AI, trust is going to be impacted so strongly. Surveys show that people don't have the same trust in corporate messaging as they used to. And so it's through the thought leadership of not only the CEO, of key leaders in the organization, you're able to bring that visibility and serve the marketing function of their organization. And on a higher level, right? Again, we're not working with clients who are, hustling to land clients and deals. They have teams, but they build that thought leadership through their voice that then helps the marketing function of the organization. We're having more and more marketers reach out to us saying, can you convince our CEO to build their thought leadership brand so that it makes our job easier? Number one. Number two, serving the HR function of the organization. Same idea. And again, I think not only the CEO, but all key leaders within the organization. We know that 70 to 80% of people don't quit the company, they quit their boss. By the same token, that would mean that people can be attracted to a boss versus a company. It also means that as a CEO, you're able to shine spotlight on the organizational core values, what the company is like, what's happening, where again, you can inspire people. And that's what we hear from clients. They're able to attract higher caliber talent to the organization because of the visibility of the CEO. I think that's number two. I think number three, it gives you also portability. We work with a lot of business owners who exited and felt that they made a lot of money, but they sold their soul. And they say, now I feel irrelevant. And who am I now? And how can I be positioned for the next step in my journey, be it serving on boards or maybe another business or advisory, investing, etc. And then finally, why I think it's important, this one's at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. This one goes on the top. It's self-actualization. It's when you have a podcast interview that you did, and somebody's going to message you and say, you know what, Dave, that conversation you had, it really impacted me. It made a difference. This is why. It's when I speak on a stage and I talk about Ukraine, and I'm Ukrainian, and I talk about the war, and people go and donate. So I'm able to inspire, we're able to impact, and that feels meaningful. That doesn't feed the business, but it feeds our souls, and that's another important reason.
I think it's great. And, what I was thinking you're talking about is the social media landscape changing. And I was reading an article on Entrepreneur that you wrote about Chat GPT and just AI and how it's evolving, right? And I saw you speak a few weeks ago in Manila and at a conference, and how many of the speakers, what was it? I mean, I think almost every one of them touched on it, and then half of them were focused on it, that this topic. My question for you is, how do you personally utilize these AI tools as they're evolving? And then how would you recommend an entrepreneur like Dave or others out there to utilize these tools? Because I love that you're all about the authenticity and the genuine nature of somebody. And then you got this kind of plagiarism, approach with these tools. And so I guess I'm just curious on how you utilize them.
That's such a great question. It's very timely, and we're all playing with AI tools, right? And I think that if you're not in your business, you're really missing out. They're also fun. I think that where a lot of people are making a huge mistake is using them to produce the final copy, let's say content. And that's a huge mistake, because you lose complete authenticity, and what you keep is generic. When you look at a post written by Dave, you know it was written by Dave. And it's authentic, right? He has his own style. You replace that with GPT, you lose the heart and the soul. You read my post, it's written by me. You might like it, you might not like it, but at least you're liking or not liking me, not something generic, right?
Looks like we lost Marina for a second. We're going to try to get her back. Dave and Todd, if you guys want to chat for a minute. Oh, looks like she's coming back now. Hold on just a second. We're going to try to refresh her.
Yeah, the AI is definitely a big deal.
Well, I was talking about this just because everyone's using it. How are we using it?
Am I back?
You're back.
AI said, "Get out of here." We don't want this kind of talk.
OpenAI was monitoring you. They didn't like it.
Microsoft's been investing a lot in AI. They're like, we don't need this rhetoric. I'm going to get to a good side of AI. But what I'm seeing a lot of it, for example, on LinkedIn, people will create a post. It's obvious that it's written by ChatGPT, and then people will comment using AI tools. So it's an AI tool talking to an AI tool, which completely loses, all authenticity. I think that's a huge mistake. What it's fantastic for is ideating, brainstorming, research if it's the paid tool, not if it's unpaid and it's hallucinating. I think it's great for helping out with title ideas. So it's a great helper. We use it a lot as assistance, but certainly not as the anything where our voice and our authenticity makes a difference.
You mentioned that 70 to 80% of employees quit their bosses. And I think in a landscape where we are all, I don't care who you are as an employer, we are all struggling for talent. We are all trying to find workers, hard workers, workers who get the job done. 70 to 80% quit their bosses, and when you talk about, the quiet quitting or, just people vanishing the workspace, the personal brand plays into that, based on, what you've said. How does a personal brand, how does that really help people not to quit their bosses? Or how does that change the quiet quitting. Is there anything there on the personal brand that is going to help us as business owners, keep our employees, or, keep us from having basically our employees quit us?
Is again such a timely question. So first of all, I would say at the very least, having that visibility helps us attract employees, and that is very important too, right? So one of the, Eric Slavaugh, our fellow EO member, through the work that we've been doing together, that's one of the things he said is he's been able, through his visibility, attract the type of caliber of talent that he wasn't always able to attract in the past because of his visibility, because of talking about his core values or sharing stories that were resonating with people, and they were thus attracted to the organization. So that's number one, attracting talent. Keeping talent, listen, it's a tricky one because certainly no matter what your personal brand is, you can't fix poor leadership. So if the leader is poor, right, you can't put lipstick on a pig. It's not going to work, right? But if the leader is great, having that, visibility and positioning yourself as a thought leader, well, I'd argue it's inspiring to people. And people want to work for people who inspire. And people also want to work for leaders who are modern leaders, right? Especially younger employees, right? They see you out there and you see, you launch a podcast or I'm posting something on social media. We're giving talks, and that's exciting to them. That's markings of a modern leader. A leader who says, that's not for me and I don't need this. Nobody cares about social media. It's the same leader who 20 years ago said that social media for the business was irrelevant to them, right? And that existed. So it's all of those things. As do you want to be a modern leader to your younger employees? And also, we're seeing more and more, not even millennial, but already Gen Zs who've entered the workforce. They're looking for meanings. They're looking for alignment, core values. Studies show that they're looking for CEOs that have a position on things, which is scary for a lot of CEOs. But that's how we show that we have a position. It's not only behind closed doors we make a statement. It's what is it that we're saying out there? What do we stand for? They're interested increasingly in knowing that as well. And in order to be able to communicate it, you first have to have clarity on it, right? And so that's where having that, figuring out, well, what is my personal brand? What is it that I stand for? What do I want to be known for? That is where that clarity helps before you start going and communicating it at scale.
You mentioned something about, hey, when my business is over and life after my business. And when you talk to, and you also just mentioned, a lot of folks who might want to get on social media and they say, well, that's not for me. That's not relevant to me. I don't do social media. I'm not going to do social media. You hear those kind of things. And then, they hear somebody inspiring like yourself share and they think, okay, I'll do social media. And then they get online and they're thinking, okay, well, now I'm just posting about my business every day. And I'm posting, we have the best fruit smoothie stand, or our t-shirts are the best because of X, Y, and Z, and they feel like they're just continuing to post about the business, and they go weeks with 1 like or 2 likes, and it becomes very discouraging, and they don't know how to step out of that box and really open up, I think, a little bit of their personal life and a little bit of who they are. And like you said, a little bit of their values have to start to show through and bleed through. What are the steps that you go through to mentor an entrepreneur through these kind of, I'll call them just catechisms, but just these blockades that they run into where they can't seem to move forward, or they seem to get stuck?
The number one thing that I wish anybody knew, and everybody, every CEO knew about personal branding is this. A personal branding, my personal brand, your personal brand, it's not what we do, it's who we are. And so if we're putting ourselves out there, and the stage doesn't matter, social media is just one of the platforms. It could be public speaking, it could be podcast interviews. If all we talk about and show of ourselves is what we do and not who we are, we don't make a connection with people. And if we don't make a connection with people, well, then there's no engagement. Again, be it from a stage or be it on a social media platform. So that's number one. The problem is that people will say, well, how do I show who I am if I'm a private person, or I don't want to be talking about anything and everything, or how do I know that this topic is okay for me to speak about? The problem that the mistake most people make is they start doing before figuring out, well, what's going to be my strategy and approach? Before marketing your brand, you need to figure out, well, what is your brand? What are your topics? What is your angle? How do you want to be perceived? How do you not want to be perceived? What platforms do feel authentic to you? Everybody might be saying TikTok is the thing right now. It's not authentic to me. Why am I going to be there? For me, the stage might be public speaking. But you have to figure out all those things before you start doing and acting because somebody said you should be on LinkedIn, or you should launch a podcast, or you should, be on a panel somewhere. So what we help people do is first figure out, well, what is their brand? What do they stand for? What do they want to be known for? And then all of those different elements with a roadmap and plan of action before we start executing. So when you get to that point of creating a post, for example, well, this is one of my topics. This is how I want to be perceived, how I will make it resonate, and then you execute. 99.9% of people that have tried putting themselves out there did it in the exact opposite order. LinkedIn.com, here I am. Platform, what should I be writing about? Oh, who's going to be reading this? Oh, what are they going to think of me? And then either they post things that don't resonate, or they quit because they say it's uncomfortable. What we help people do is figure out all those steps and strategy before executing.
That's a great piece of advice. Your business, what got you into this? Why did you start a personal branding business? Why is this important to you?
Awesome. Now I get to talk about who I am, and not only what I do, I get to weave it in. It's 100% it's a passion business. I got to combine everything that really drives me. It's one of those things, what would you do if you weren't getting paid for it? It would be that. It would be inspiring people to find their voice and scale the reach of their voice in one format or another. Personal branding is just one of the formats, one of the tools, and there's different tools. I was born when it was still the Soviet Union. I grew up with this feeling of course, I couldn't define it at the time as a kid, but in retrospect, it was that feeling of not having a voice, not being able to express yourself, not standing out, trying to fit in all the time, that feeling. I came to Canada, and honestly, I kid you guys not, I was 16 years old. I was walking around when we immigrated to Canada, and I'm true story. I walked around thinking, this is democracy. Literally, what 16-year-old needs to walk around like that? That's messed up. And I literally felt, I can speak up, I can say what I think, and I can, be who I want to be. And I was wrong, because at the time I had a very thick accent and nobody understood what in the world I was saying. They couldn't get to the end of what I was trying to talk about. And I felt again, I felt constrained. I felt like I didn't have a voice. And then also realized as a teenager, you don't want to stand out. You want to fit in. You want to figure out what everyone else is wearing and saying and just be the same. And struggled with that again. And so over the years, it took me such a long time to finally get to the point where, see, I'm talking and you guys are listening.
We love it. You're captivating. You're doing a fabulous job.
It's awesome.
I worked on it. And then I also, accepted the fact that you can fit in but still stand out at the same time. And it took me a long time to learn it. And as I went through that journey, completely out of personal desire to be heard and have a voice, this is democracy, I'm gonna speak up now, it was personal. But all of a sudden, I realized all that it was doing for my business. I had a different business at the time. We were scaling it, hired a PR firm, 10 months, one media placement. As I started building my visibility, that's where all of the Inc. and Fast Company and Success Magazine and everything you mentioned came organically, because I started having a point of view and putting myself out there. As I started doing public speaking, we started attracting better quality talent. We started attracting clients. And so I said, wow, this is not just, a personal thing I do. It makes me feel so good. There's business benefits here, which inspired me to realize that this could be a business, and also made me realize how many incredible business owners, talented, have so much to say, so successful, values-driven, purpose-driven, don't have a voice? How many say, well, what do I have to say that's of value? Why would anybody listen to me? Why should I put myself out there? So to, again, be the catalyst to tell people, no, you're really amazing. Like, this is why everybody's going to listen to you. And then see them do it is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really powerful. So when someone is interested in finding their voice and they're, or somebody in the audience today is saying to themselves, man, am I the right type of client for Marina? Am I capable of doing that? Am I capable of, putting myself out there? What are the steps that someone goes through with your company? How do they get that comfort? How do you extrapolate that from them?
So step one, are you right for us? Are we right for you? We work with Gen Xers, Gen X CEOs and entrepreneurs. We have 3 criteria for vetting. Is this our person and not our person? And we say, ideally all 3 are met, at least 2 have to be met. Number 1, Gen Xer. Number 2, has credibility, has built something of value, is doing something interesting, has to have credibility. And number 3, humble. And humble, we don't mean lacking of confidence, but not narcissistic, me, everybody, the world must be looking at me type of person. If you're watching or listening and that's you and you're kind of like, ooh, am I ready for the spotlight? We need to speak. We might be right for each other. But so the process that we go through before anything's created, and that's why I think that, even for people who don't think, am I ready to put myself out there? Should I be putting myself out there? That first part of what we go through is valuable regardless, because that's the part where we figure out, so even if you keep it for yourself behind closed doors for your teams, there's still value in that work of introspection that we do together, which is the process that we went through together with you, Dave. Yeah. So what we do is we take our clients through 3 deep dives where we really get to know them, starting at childhood. You'll remember that. We started with, where were you born? What was family life like? What are the highs and lows?
It got very personal.
Gets very personal. A lot of people say this is therapy. We got a lot of tears. We get a lot of emotion. Because outside of therapy, we really don't get an opportunity to go through these types of things. But so our goal is to really get to know the person. We talk about core values. We talk about how do you want to be perceived? What are the things that you really believe in? Why do you believe in them? So taking all of those answers and all of those discussions, what our team then does is we look for common denominators and patterns. What are some of the things that have surfaced? What are some of the common threads that we are identifying? And then we will usually take, one of those, sometimes it's a core value, and we will turn it into, your one thing, your position and your angle, and we build out everything else. Here are the topics that you want to be associated with, again, be it with your own team behind closed doors or in the public eye. In those topics, there's one that is building your credibility, connected to your thought leadership. There's at least one that humanizes you. So what are those going to be? Because we don't believe in talking about everything. It's about talking about things that you want to be eventually associated with. How do you want to be perceived, not perceived, your plan of action? We build out the whole brand strategy. That is step 1. And then for people who are looking, so that's where we help you realize your greatness. And then for people who need help expressing their greatness, we help co-create content, written content. We book people as podcast guests. We book them as speakers on conferences. So we help give them on stages where they can express their greatness.
That's awesome. Todd, any final thoughts as we're starting to bring this in for a landing?
You mentioned, obviously, I think a lot of people, and this could go back to personality types, but entrepreneurs range from, I think sometimes we always think, it's the charismatic, type of leader, but there's so many people, you mentioned introverted people out there that just, I don't want to expose just me, right? Just what's that first step for them? Outside of the deep dive, what would be a recommendation for them in that moment? Because I think there's so many, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your business, is like, I just don't want to, but they have so much to share and tell. What's that first nudge? Like, what recommendation would you give to that person that might be looking right now or thinking, okay, like maybe this is the time, but where do they start? I mean, what's that look like outside of reaching out to you, but for them, like to get in that confidence?
So strategy is very important. So whether we do it together or somebody does it on their own, that deep dive and strategy of, what platforms make sense, what do they want to be associated with as far as topics and all those things, that is key. Before taking any action outside of that, you want to have the deep dive to understand, well, what is it going to be? The things that I say to someone who is more of an introvert or more private or more hesitant about the whole public eye or is afraid of getting canceled, we're getting that a lot, is that the whole point of creating your own plan of action and your roadmap and your strategy is that you get to make choices. You don't have to, and actually you shouldn't be talking about everything bare in your soul. If you're not looking to be a lifestyle influencer, you really don't need to be sharing your private and personal life. I am an extrovert, as you can see. I'm quite out there. I'm very private with my kids. I don't post any pictures of my children where you can see their faces. They're at this point used to the fact that when I take out my camera, they turn around with their backs because that's what I post. People will say, can I actually see faces of your kids? We all have our own boundaries and limits, and it's important to identify whether you're working with someone, that's where we help, or you do it on your own. What are your boundaries and what are your limits? What are the things you wouldn't want to talk about, right? We had a conversation with Dave of, should he be talking about faith or not? And for some people, the answer is no. And for other people like Dave, the answer is a resounding yes, because that is, a key topic for him. But it doesn't mean that everyone should. That's all the decisions we make before. I don't think that we as leaders need to weigh in on every hot topic du jour, and have an opinion and a position on every single thing. But we can't be deciding in the moment, right? Another crisis is happening on a societal level. It's not when we decide whether or not as a leader we should weigh in. We should know what are my topics and what are my lanes, and that dictates whether we weigh in on the conversation and how do we weigh in. So that's one of the things. Another one I would say is, again, one of the things to ideate on is what platforms do feel comfortable. So social media might not feel comfortable, but maybe launching your own podcast where you are interviewing people and giving them a stage, maybe that's comfortable. Maybe thought leadership articles as a first step are comfortable. Maybe being on industry panels as a first step is comfortable. So it's just realizing, no, you're not going to have to do selfie videos and do, and share all of your, where you're vacationing and dining and lunching and all those things. You don't have to, but you could if it's right for you. You just have to have strategy first. So figuring it all out before taking action really is the most important part.
I like that. And I think it's about too, where you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
What comes easiest? Because that's an easy place to start. If you feel comfortable writing an article or being on an expert panel, that feels comfortable. You playing basketball, that's gonna happen. He's a basketball star, by the way. He should be promoting this on his social media. He beat the kids in the Philippines. He was bragging about it at the office.
You may or may not remember, it's the dunk heard around the world. So literally,
the dunk heard.
Okay, cool. But that's one of the things. So for example, let's say you came to us and you said, thinking about putting myself out there, I'm not so comfortable. If we were to work together, we would lean into what feels exciting and comfortable. So if that's your thing and that's what you're excited about, then that is a humanizing element. And the question is, how do we weave it in? So it's not random. Here you're talking about, business. Here you're talking about sports. We find a way to weave it in, but then you feel excited because there's a connection, right? How can we always look at how can we bridge what you do with who you are, because that's what's compelling. As a standalone, no, because if we only talk about things outside of our credibility, if we only talk about that, over time it becomes fluffy. But we only talk about our area of expertise, over time it becomes boring and stale. When we merge the two together, right? When I'm able to talk to you about, talking about Ukraine on a stage, or I'm able to talk to you about, growing up in the Soviet Union, or, being insecure about my accent, and then talk about personal branding. Then now I'm human, but I'm also, not just telling you stories about my personal life. We're talking about business as well. So it's really the magic lies in combining those two.
I believe so. I believe it's intertwined, because we don't buy from robots, we buy from humans. And at the end of the day, we're all selling something to make a profit, to take care of our families or whatever we've got. This has been an incredible show today. I want to say that I first heard you speak at the EO chapter retreat for EO Seattle in San Diego. And when I heard you speak and share, I said, I have got to get connected with Marina. And that's what I did. I got connected and I went through that 3-step process, that deep dive, and help refine, what my focus is on personal branding. And it's not just, I'm not focused just on social media. I focus on other areas as well. But I'll just say that Marina is an excellent speaker. You heard her speak at Doxicon in the Philippines. So she speaks all over the world. If you're out there and you're looking for a speaker, Marina is a world-class speaker. I definitely encourage you to bring her on. If you're looking for, the next step in your personal brand, check out her business, get in touch with her, reach out. They're absolutely incredible. If anybody out in the audience is looking to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So 2 ways. Our website is brandofaleader.com, a pretty straightforward name for what we do.
Yep.
And there's a possibility there of clicking on the link and booking a call with our team, and talking about, all those concerns and next steps and learning more, number 1. And number 2, if somebody wants to connect with me personally, the benefit of the hard to pronounce last name is I'm the only Marina Byezhanova on LinkedIn. So if anybody, copies and pastes from this, from your show notes into LinkedIn, I'm the only one that comes up. And I always love connecting with people, and I reply to every single message myself.
Well, that's awesome. And, that's a pretty powerful statement. You're the only one. I mean, a lot of people,
one of one.
A lot of people want that because they put the real Michael Jordan, or they've got the real or the, because somebody has already taken their name 10 times over. So this is the real Marina Byezhanova.
You got it again.
Did I nail it twice? 3 times. 3 times. That's how you end it on perfection. Okay, a 3-peat is perfection. We'll see if the Kansas City Chiefs can do it. They were talking about if a 3-peat is possible.
That's right.
I don't know. We'll see. Marina, this has been absolutely fantastic. Call. Thank you so much. Listen, this show, we are on 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single Tuesday. If this information was helpful, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box. I will personally respond to them myself as well. And give us that like, give us that share. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Marina.
Thank you.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations, so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. There's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.